Now, new ideas for ending international tug-of-love disputes between parents are to be published today by the Lord Chancellor. In a moment, we'll talk to Laylle, who's been fighting to get her 2 children back from Germany and has now written a book about her experiences. And we'll be hearing from the MP Bill Cash, who's campaigning to get the law changed. First, this report from David Bowden.
Yvonne Gill is a mother at the end of her tether, one of an increasing number of...
We don't have that report. In fact, we'll now go on to talk to Laylle, who's with me at the moment. Good morning to you. When did you last see your children?
In May of this year. Overall, I've seen my children since they were abducted, which was July '94, 8.5 hours. And I was locked in a room. A woman who shouldn't have been there was there. And I was forced to speak German to my children. And my husband was hiding in the next door room. I mean, it's sort of barbaric circumstances.
That seems extraordinary. Is the legal system conspiring against you, in your view?
Well, I think there are several problems. I mean, the first problem is that all this is happening in a small town, and my husband lives on the property of a judge. His father knows the mayor. His sister works in the Ministry of Justice of the local federation. And so there is a problem with that. And the second thing is that the law in Germany is very different to the law in other countries. I mean, it's still a law that actually dates from the Third Reich, that one parent can be awarded full and complete custody, giving absolutely no rights to the other parent. And I actually find it quite extraordinary that such a law still subsides while we're talking about Europe.
I mean, what does seem quite extraordinary as well is the sort of pressure you must have been under, and indeed the children under, over the last 2.5 years. What effect has it had on you emotionally?
I think it's nearly very difficult to describe. I think the first year or the first year and a half is just a sheer nightmare. I mean, it's like half of you was taken away. I mean, you're a mother, and I think for every parent, I mean, for a father too, but maybe for a mother it's even more physically difficult. I mean, my children were in my stomach. I mean, I cuddled them, cared for them, and then suddenly you send them on holiday within an agreement, and I had custody, and you never see them again, and so you have nightmares and you worry, and I think it was just completely horrifying for me. But then I decided there was 2 ways. I mean, either you just disintegrate or you decide to take your hand in control and fight. But for the children, it must be absolutely appalling.
Do you have any worries about the way your husband might treat the children?
Absolutely, because just from the sheer fact that a man who cannot be doing that because of his love of his children, but really out of revenge of a woman who dared to leave him, that he has 2 small children they were 7 and 9 when they were abducted, were completely denied a mother, and they have no love and care and attention from a mother. And obviously my husband is not telling to the children, oh yes, your mother loves you and she's fighting to see you. He's telling them, you see, she's abandoned you. I have had no telephone contact with my children in 2.5 years. And so for the children it must be appalling. I mean, the other day I was reading something about Cary Grant, who his mother was taken away when he was 8. When he was an adult, he did find out the truth, but it affected him all his life. I mean, he's been married 5 times. There were rumors maybe he was a homosexual. He never trusted women. I mean, the psychological effect this has on children is horrifying, and I find very much that we live in a civilized society where there are human rights, and for children to be snatched away from a parent and then taken to another country, and in my case it's been completely illegal. I mean, England had orders, I had custody, my children were wards of court, and the local court in Germany transferred the custody to my husband while the children were wards of court. You know, that things like that happen is like in the medieval times.
And of course, you're not alone. You must have been in touch with other people who are similarly afflicted, as it were.
Absolutely.
And it seems to be a very serious problem for quite a number of people.
And that's why I'm here, and that's why I would like to thank the media, because it's only thanks to the media that I have made this case public. And I've taken upon myself to really, and that's why I've written this book, that, you know, I want to tell the world what's going on. We cannot ignore children. And unfortunately, a lot of the parents that go through a thing like that are so distraught that they can't have it in them to fight anymore. And the problem is that there is one special country, which is Germany. Every single children that were ever abducted to Germany, none of them were ever returned. We have, in England, recorded 37 cases. That means an average of 2 or 3 children per cases, so hundreds of children. None of them were returned under the Hague Convention. In Ireland, there were 4 cases. In France, 50 or 55 cases. None of them were returned. And I mean, we can't, see a Europe if one country keeps children. And my children are not German. They are European. They have a French, English mother, and they have 3 passports.
Well, let's hope something's going to be done about it. Mrs. Laylle, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, joining us now is Bill Cash MP, who's been campaigning for a change in the law to help tug-of-love parents. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Presumably you heard Catherine's story there, and you welcome the ideas in this consultation paper.
Well, I've been supporting Catherine very strongly ever since this whole matter first arose, and I'm absolutely appalled at the way in which she's been treated by the German courts, and also, more generally, the other people, the other 30-odd cases which have occurred. And the reality is that the real question that has to be sorted out here is to get reciprocal rights, so that if in fact, as in Catherine's case, she has it right on her side, the equivalent court in the other country must allow her to have a proper and fair examination of the facts, which I don't believe for a minute occurred in her case.
Yes, because, as you're saying, even if there is a new ruling, sometimes they're not observed by judges in other countries.
That's right, and I think it's absolutely outrageous the way it's been happening. And as she's pointed out, as regards the German courts in particular, they have been, well, there simply haven't been any children returned. Now, that is a characteristic of the way in which they think. And what we've got to do is to negotiate a situation in which the procedural rules are changed so that you have a proper and fair arrangement, because, I mean, it is possible that there is fault on one side or another in any particular case. I don't happen to think there is in Catherine's case. I think she's completely right, and I don't think that she's been treated at all fairly. But something has to be done. I'm very glad that at last, because I've had several meetings with government ministers on this very question, on Catherine Lyle's case, that something appears to be beginning in the form of this consultation exercise. But we've got to be extremely rigorous to make sure that the proposals that are put forward are going to work and are going to give proper and fair justice to people like Catherine Lylle.
Now, we've mentioned Germany, but what other countries are bad when it comes to dealing with this sort of thing?
Well, there are a wide range of countries. I mean, we've had difficulties, for example, with regard to France as well. But the bottom line is that it is the Hague Convention which needs to be shaken up. And I have heard some people suggesting that you need to have uniformity. And I heard the minister concerned this morning, Gary Streeter, saying that they were going to try and get improvements to the Hague Convention, and that yet another country had signed up to it. But I think the Hague Convention itself needs to be shaken up, and that is really the problem, and that's why I should be looking at this consultation process with very great concern and great interest, because I believe there are some practical things that can be taken, and that all those countries that subscribe to the principle of fair treatment where there are cases of abduction have actually got to have procedural rules to make sure it actually happens. I mean, Catherine Lyle's case is an absolute classic, and I believe very strongly that when her book comes out, that people should read it, because that will explain in graphic detail the kind of horrific circumstances in which she has been placed.
And it's quite damaging, of course, for the children, as we heard, at the centre of these wrangles. Bill Cash, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.